Hey guys, it's Dan. Welcome back. This is going to be the last unboxing, certainly not last Victrix unboxing, but the last of the package of 5 that I'd ordered for myself from Victrix. And this is going to be a look at their Macedonian Greek Successor Heavy Cavalry. So this is going to be a set of 12, unlike the last Cavalry set that we looked at, which was their medieval mounted knights, which had 18. As I said in that video, it's actually much more common for their cavalry sets to have 12 models. And from glancing at it, it looks like it's broken up with 4 sprues of riders and 4 sprues of horses. No command. I did want to say too, just glancing at the package here. Once again, it comes in a bag, as we have seen with all of our Victrix unboxings so far. The tab up here at the top is kind of a slightly different color from the other stuff that they've put out, just so you can see at a glance what it is just from the color. But I noticed in the back something interesting, which is this kit. I should have looked at exactly when this was released, but I want to say it was released sometime in the last couple of years. So it's not a new kit, post Vikings, but pre what I've seen from them is like a schematic. Yeah, that we've seen some of their unboxings and some not. And so I thought it was an interesting comparison, because you can see kind of the evolution here, where initially they put out some of these that have almost like a description, right? Like when you read this, it's saying if you want to make this kind of cavalry, you're going to use these arms and these heads, right? And then by comparison, if you wanted to use make them Greeks instead of Macedonians, you're going to use these heads and these arms. And you can see the specificity that they've evolved into, where now this kit, this is for their Persian armored archers, which we unboxed previously. But I brought this out because that one also did not include a schematic on it, for reasons that we talked about in that video, that it really didn't need one. However, you can see how specific the breakdown is here, where it's like per body, these are the arms that are eligible, these are the heads that are eligible. Whereas by contrast, this is much more generic, right? Saying that any of these heads or arms will work on any body if you're trying to make Macedonian companion cavalry versus Greek heavy cavalry. So without even opening the kit, what that implies to me is that the poses are going to be a little bit simpler, certainly than what we saw in like the Persian armored archers or any of the more recent kits that have required actual printed schematics to show you what goes with what. But that's what I'm anticipating when we open up this box together. So let's crack it open here. And I like kits like this that are versatile in what they can represent, especially for like me. I plan to blend these into my Carthaginians, so I don't really know exactly what I want to make them as yet, but it's nice to have a set that's, again, versatile and can represent different things depending on the options that are in the kit. So again, we're used to this. Some of their kits come with command sprues, some don't. This one does not, but it looks like there's some command related bits on the rider sprue. So 2 types of sprues, 4-piece, 3 riders per sprue, and then 3 horses across 4 sprues for 12 total. So as we've done before with cavalry sets, let's take a look at the horse sprue first, and eliminate 3 of them here. And so this is a much simpler sprue than the mounted medieval knights that we saw, both because the number of poses is reduced, but also because there's no saddles at this period in history. It was not something that was invented yet, so there's not even like saddle pieces that need to be attached here. Still beautiful sculpts, as we I think demand at this point from Victrix, but certainly expect from Victrix. But yeah, the sculpting quality is excellent. I really like, just from looking at it at a glance here, some of them seem to have sculpted like cloth across their backs, which is very neat. And some close-ups here, like here there's some furs that are sculpted on. It looks like, yeah, like a large cat of some kind is what that is suggesting to me, just as a decoration. And then here too, just some simple cloths. But the face sculpting on the horses is really fantastic. And unlike the mounted medieval knights that we saw, because these horses are not covered up by barding at the painting stage, and well, I'll do a painting video of these somewhere down the road, it'll be nice to explore like different patterns on the horses, different fur color, things like that. It also looks like different, these two sides, just like we saw with the Mounted Medieval Knights. Again, a lot of comparisons to that kit, but that's the most recent Cavalry set from them I've looked at. It looks like these two sides of the horse bodies are specific to one another, so that certainly these two can't blend anywhere else, because you can see that they have this like large cat pelt. But also any of these I don't think could blend together to create more poses, but that's perfectly fine for me. That's industry standard as far as I'm concerned. And then we'll pull aside one of these rider sprues and look at them in more detail. So as I feel like I keep mentioning, but it's probably worth it, that the layout of these sprues Victrix is very consistent with, where you'll have bodies in the center, you'll have weapons kind of flanking the bodies, and then either on both sides or on one side you'll have heads. And the sculpting on these is very clean, very crisp. Have no concerns from a like production standpoint. And in fact, the flash on it is fairly non-existent. Like, I only see a little bit of flash on the sides of some of these bodies here. But otherwise, some places that can accumulate a lot of flash, like sides of heads and stuff, I don't see anything there. It's very cool, very clean. Let's take a look at some of these bodies here. So there's 3 sculpts for these. Again, suggesting this is an earlier kit of Victrix's, both because we see now, and maybe the Medieval Knights won't represent the new standard, but I do feel like they kind of build on successive kits. So I would be surprised if like future Cavalry sets didn't have 6 bodies as a standard, or 6 horses, for example, as a standard. Whereas this is half that number, right? 3 horse bodies and 3 rider bodies. And as predicted just from looking at the back of the cover art there, you can see that the bodies all have very similar poses and very similar attachment points for the heads and the arms, which is why none of them are going to be body or head, or yeah, none of them are going to be body specific. So you'll be able to mix and match all the arms and heads as you please, which means the poses are going to be a little bit more simplistic. But again, what I care about most is if the sculpting quality is all there, and it looks like it is. I will say, unlike, again, I'm sorry that everything I'm comparing it to is Victrix's medieval mounted knight kits, but that in addition to only having 3 pose varieties, all 3 of these models are very, very similar looking. That it almost, other than the foot gear looking different, it almost looks like the upper half of these guys is the same sculpt copied 3 times, which is fine given the content that we're covering here. Yeah, and even I guess there is a difference here with the linen skirts here, or leather skirts that they've got. Again, very detailed, very crisp sculpts. I like that a lot. But it lacks some of the individuality that we see in more recent Victrix kits. There's nothing wrong with this, but again, what it really speaks to me is just how good Victrix is becoming. That from kits like this, as I said, I really feel they build on what they've done well in the past, and so their more recent Cavalry kits, I think, are a reflection of that growth. So on the sides of these bodies here, you've got a couple of different shield types. Again, on if they're going to represent Greek heavy cavalry or Macedonian companion cavalry. So you've got these Macedonian style shields here, and then you've got the Greek style shields over here, and sculpted backs, which you know I like to see. So that's very nice. And then likewise, you also have different types of swords and sword scabbards, not necessarily depending on if they're Macedonians or Greeks, but you've got like kopis style swords here, and then just regular short swords. So 3 of each type, so enough to equip any of these riders the same way. So if you want all 3 of them to have Greek shields, or all 3 to have companion Macedonian style shields, or indeed swords of 1 or 2 particular types, if you want to go crazy and give them each 2 swords, you have enough bits to do that. Same thing here with these cloak bits, that there are enough cloak bits to give all 3 riders a cloak, and each of the cloaks is actually different, which is good. Even these 2 that look kind of similar are actually, you can tell from the folds in the cloaks there, that those are different. Very nice, clean sculpting on those, and is nice because it will help to add a little bit of variety just to these 3 riders. That if you want to mix and match the different cloaks, you'll get 9 different variants just from the 3 cloaks and the 3 riders' bodies. Let's move on to arms here. So you've got these really long spears that the companion cavalry would have used. And once again, very nice clean sculpting here on the arm bits, the hand bits. No issues with any of that. There's one loose one here that looks like it could be used in conjunction with an arm somewhere to make like a stabbing kind of pose, just based on the way that it's gripped in the hand. So that's neat. And on the other, yeah, here's, it looks like this is the one here that it would go with. And on the other side, you've got these shorter, like javelin style arms for the Greek heavy cavalry, because that's how they would have been equipped. Just with some javelins, throwing spears. And again, excellent sculpting quality on these. And then a nice standard bit here, if you want to make a command for these guys. And then if I flip it back over, looks like a sword, either to make an officer out of, or just if you want to equip 2 of them with swords. That is one thing to note. And again, historically, I don't think they would have all been equipped with swords and no like spears or ranged weapons. But there aren't enough oh, there are. I misspoke. Yeah, there's 3 sword bits. So if you wanted to equip the entire unit just with swords, you could do that as well. That's great. And then you've got a couple of different varieties of left arm for holding shields. So you can see the sculpting is a little bit different on each of these. And then you got some down here if you wanted to throw them on your Greeks. So nice that they did that. They've got kind of the long sleeves for the companion cavalry, and they've got them organized that way too, where the companion cavalry arms are on one side, and then the Greek arms are on the other side. Is kind of how it looks like it was organized. So that's cool that they've done things that way, just to keep it nice and clean for us. And then up here, I guess the last thing I want to look at is the heads. So it's curious, so in trying to figure out which heads belong to which, it does state on the back which ones do go with which. However, there's a condition on that, which is that, so they're saying that heads CH1 through CH7 are for the Macedonian companion cavalry, which makes sense if you look at them stylistically. That's what they remind me of. However, they're also saying that the same heads could be used for Successor and later Greek cavalry. They're saying use the exact same heads, but they're also referencing these heads here, HH1, 2, 3, and 4, and then plus heads CH1 to CH7, which are the ones that we just looked at there. What's curious about that, though, is that these 4 heads that they reference aren't anywhere on this sprue. So what I have to believe that they're referencing, given the timing that this kit came out, because this came out well before both the Greek hoplite head sprue that we looked at previously and the new Greek hoplite kit that we looked at. What I have to believe this is referring to with these 4 heads are from their first 4 armored hoplite boxes that they put out, that these heads would show up on those sprues. And unfortunately, I don't have any of those sprues left to cross-reference to verify that. That's the only thing I can think of, though. So they're basically saying that these heads could be used for Macedonians or Greeks. And then it looks like these 4, because they're not referenced anywhere on that back sheet, just kind of look like generic, either North African or Eastern, Western Mediterranean heads. So, and that's what they look like to me. They look more like Carthaginians. But yeah, again, beautiful sculpting on these. They're really nice. Excellent. No complaints there. So this is cool. This is fun. This, again, it is a simpler kit because it's one of their earlier sets. But as I said multiple times, what I really feel here is important is that the sculpting is all there. It's crisp, nice details. There's basically no flash on these models that I can see. And you can see, having dealt with a lot of Victrix kits, where Victrix kind of learned from their successful bits and built on some of the sets like this to make their more modern cavalry sets. So while it is a somewhat more simple set, again, it comes with lots of different options to make different styles of rider. And because the attachment points are more generic, it means you don't have to worry about making sure that certain heads and certain arms fit with certain bodies, because everything can be mixed and matched as you please. So, as is customary now, I'm going to cut here, I'm going to build some of these, and we'll take a look at some of the assembled models together. And here we go, guys. So I built up 3 models here, so 1 sprue's worth. And I think the end result is pretty cool. So they went together really easily, no issues. As we saw on the sprue shots, the models are comparatively simpler. So that also makes them easy to put together. You don't need a schematic, because any of the bits you choose off the sprue, any of the heads go with any of the bodies. So that's actually, it's pros and cons to having models that are a little bit more straightforward, but it also means that one of the pros is that they're very easy to assemble. I was really impressed too when I was initially clipping these cloaks off. I thought that they looked, I don't know, like kind of wrong as I was putting them on the bodies, but then I attached the bodies to the horses, and you can see it just gives them so much movement. Like it really looks great when the models are fully assembled. And yeah, they fit together really nicely, to the point where I actually hope the Victrix releases a set of just cloaks like as part of their conversion kit line, because they do a really good job with that, especially on their newer kits. I think that the sculpting is even better than what you can see on these kits here. In terms of what I've done here, as far as assembly goes, you can see I'm building them up kind of like some kind of, I don't know, heavy light cavalry, because they're done in kind of a Greek style. And to that end, I actually took one of the heads. This is from the new Greek hoplite kit, so also the Greek hoplite heads kit, and put it on to this model, and you can see that it blends together just fine. So no issues there in terms of scale. I was curious though, because when I was putting these together, again, the sculpting on the horses is lovely, but I did notice that they're a little bit smaller. Let me actually get one that's a little more upright. Yeah, like this one here. You can see the horses are similar in scale, but I think that, especially if you look at it head on, you can see that they're just a tiny bit smaller than the new horses, like the war horses from the Medieval Knights kit, which is probably also historically correct. Not a criticism, just a note. But also, in terms of, speaking of scale, I just wanted to bring in some of the Greek hoplite models from the new Greek hoplite set. And you can see that I think that they go together very, very nicely. Again, it's always difficult to compare a cavalry model to an infantry model, but I think that you can see here that these are all the same scale and they blend together very well. And I was curious in the other direction, and I made kind of a silly sculpt here, silly figure, which is like some kind of heavy Macedonian skirmisher that likely never would have existed. But I took the head and arms from the Macedonian cavalry kit and put it onto one of the infantry bodies from the Greek infantry kit to make this kind of skirmisher guy. So you can see, again, I think the bits from these kits are all totally interchangeable. And yeah, that's another fantastic kit from Victrix. And as I always say, something worth picking up if this is a time period or subject that interests you. So as ever, thanks for stopping by, guys. Until next time, happy gaming.